Hey guys, what's up? Today I want to show you 10 of the most story-driven JRPGs ever. And when I say story-driven JRPGs, I don't mean games like this that are actually visual novel RPGs. I'm talking about games like this, like the Persona series, which are actually RPGs, pure RPGs with a lot of story focus. And don't worry, I mean good, very well-written stories, not the usual chit-chat and nonsensical dialogue a lot of JRPGs have. So welcome to my top 10 most story-driven JRPGs ever. Let's begin! Number 10. Rogue Galaxy. Now that I mentioned the Persona series, it's pointless to include them in the video, but my point is, this list will be full of JRPGs that are pretty much 60 or even 70% story. That's what story-driven means to me, like way more story than gameplay. You'll be reading or watching scenes a hell of a lot, but totally worth it. Of course, Persona has way more story focus than Rogue Galaxy, but in this game I felt it too present during my playthrough. I'm leaving it at number 10 precisely because it may be the least text heavy or scene heavy game in the list, but still, feels like there's a lot going on constantly. Available on PS2 and PS4, influenced by Star Wars and Star Trek, it tries a little bit to simulate an open world, well, open galaxy in this case, where you follow the adventures of Jaster Rogue, who joins a group of space pirates. They travel to different planets of the galaxy, knowing different alien races and getting caught up in a relic war that threatens the universe. A great action RPG developed by Level 5, one game that I believe was their most ambitious game in terms of storytelling back then. But if you want JRPGs that have way more story than gameplay, then keep watching. Number 9. Tales of Arise. Granted, this may not have the best story in the Tales series, but it's still really good. It hooks you up right from the start, with Alphen being an amnesiac slave who joins up with a girl from the oppressing race called Xion, and so together they start a revolution against that very same oppression. Now, I know all Tales games are story-driven RPGs, maybe that's why they are called Tales in the first place, but Arise went completely overboard with dialogue and cutscenes. More than half of the game is an exchange of beliefs, opinions, knowledge, and memories. It's unbelievable how often the character stops to talk about something, like every 5 minutes or something. Most of the skits feel really long as well. All of this is fully voiced, so it's like watching a movie play itself. Very thankfully, most of the skits or any scene whatsoever is rich with interesting conversations and character development. That's what earned Tales of Arise a spot in my list. Number 8. Fire Emblem Three Houses. I love this game with a passion. I mean, you probably noticed my Edelgard hoodie at the beginning of the video, but I've always said it's not really a true Fire Emblem game. Why? Because no Fire Emblem overwhelms you with story, dialogue and cutscenes, and the dating simulation is usually kept at a minimum, completely optional, and it happens when two characters are often together in the overworld. In Three Houses, you take this simulation a la Persona, getting scenes and scenes and scenes with different people. I mean, in no other Fire Emblem can you invite someone to drink tea together. It's also a very heavily story-driven game, and it even comes divided in 2 arcs with a small time jump in between, which makes it the longest Fire Emblem ever created. The ideas to make it like this came about before in the 3DS titles, where characters could have bonds and whatnot. It led to small conversations in your base. Three Houses focused a lot on that part, perhaps to establish a more fruitful bond or development across its large cast. To put it simple, this is Fire Emblem meets Persona, a strategy RPG with a social and/or dating simulation, but done right, again just like in Persona. Interesting, engaging, entertaining, and I really love the dark road it takes on the second arc, something that makes me say it's a terrific story, unlike the one in Awakening or Fates. Number 7. Cardia, the World of Fate. Cardia follows two interconnected storylines starring Lacrima and Toxa. You can play one first and then the other if you want to. Because of how good the story is, I didn't even consider this game for this video until the last minute. It's so good, it makes you forget you're playing a strategy RPG. You get a lot of scenes with carefully constructed dialogue to create conflict amongst the characters, apart from the usual events with the enemies of course, in a world where it feels like there's no true evil out there. Its dark themes I often felt were more oriented to a mature audience, especially since some political shenanigans were deeper than expected. Vanguard Bandits and Eternal Poison were similar, but I felt they left a lot of space for gameplay. Cardia doesn't, but it lets you complete the maps once they start and not with a lot of interruptions. This is a strongly recommended game that desperately needs some kind of re-release. Staying exclusive to PS1 and with no digital port anywhere outside Japan is not doing it any good. And speaking about strategy RPGs... Number 6. Triangle Strategy. Triangle Strategy got a lot of hate because it does focus way more on its story than on its battles. I think the point of the game was to recreate a true role-playing adventure where most of your choices deeply affect everything, including the outcome. In order to do that, they created a story where the characters are caught up in a war over resources, trying to decide what's the best course of action, how can they change things for the good. So the developers introduced the balance system called the Scales of Conviction, where you'll get the point of view of every character in your party, all anxious to decide what to do next. The result of all this is numerous branching paths and 4 different endings. Apart from that, you get tons of story, mostly political drama, cloak and dagger situations, and a careful development for each of your characters. It's hard to believe most JRPG gamers usually value the story way more than the gameplay, but a game like this gets mixed reviews because of it. Maybe they could have toned down the dialogue a little to try and please as many fans, but they didn't, and instead they exploited their creativity at their best. That's how I see it. Number 5. Fate Extra. Every time I cover this game, I focus on explaining its gameplay, primarily its battle system, which is turn-based, guessing the enemy's next move, all this in a rock-paper-scissors classic system. Today, however, I'll treat the plot. It gives you the impression of being very simple, but I swear it's got one of the most complex, intriguing and bizarre stories I've seen in a JRPG. Hell, the game even fools you at the beginning with something that I won't spoil, but it's kinda shocking. Off you go with a male or female student who's joined a deadly tournament. Participants have made a pact with the servant, and so will you with 3 different characters, Saber, Caster or Archer. Despite having tons of dialogue and sometimes walls of text narrated in first person like in a visual novel, this game is a grindfest. So don't worry, you'll still get plenty of gameplay since you need to train as much as you can before every major battle in the tournament. It gets dark, confusing, psychological and very philosophical, up to a point where you start questioning the moral decisions of every character, including yours. Terrific story here, worth reading all that dialogue in my opinion. There were news of a full remake, including a trailer of this game, but it's been 2 years and we've heard nothing new. I really hope it wasn't cancelled. Number 4. 13 Sentinels, Aegis Rim. You've probably heard many times people speaking marvels and singing praises about the story of this game. Despite looking like it's gonna be your everyday anime high school plot, it doesn't waste any time dragging you into intrigue and confusion. It's a very complex drama full of flashbacks and obviously 13 different points of view. Little by little the story starts unraveling through your own perspective, so by the end you understand how messed up everything really was, and you accompany this lonesome cast of characters trying to make up for their twisted realities. I won't lie, this is a very story-driven game. I'd say easily 70% of it being these interactive scenes in 2D. It's interactive because you can move around freely, perform small investigations and decide who to talk to first. Only way to keep unlocking most of the story though is by proceeding to battle. After preparations, customizations and all the technical role-playing is done, a real-time strategy combat will begin. Don't let it intimidate you for how convoluted it looks, it's pretty easy to get the grasp of it. Once you do, it's really fun and addictive. Just as addictive as its bizarre and dark written story or its absolutely beautiful visuals. Number 3. Tales of Berseria. If you thought Arise was the only heavily story-driven Tales game here, you probably forgot about Berseria. Arise wasn't the first one to have an overwhelming amount of dialogue, skits and cutscenes. Zestiria and Berseria did it first, although Berseria has by far the better story. But seriously, it's just like Arise. Every minute there's a skit or characters just stop randomly to talk. Now that I'm on my second playthrough, streaming it live, I can't believe how little room I have to talk. Nearly 90% of this game is fully voiced, but it's so good. You know it's about Velvet going dark in an insatiable quest for revenge against her mentor for killing her little brother, her world, her everything. Accompanied by a bunch of misfits, most of them perhaps just as crazy as Velvet, it makes for one of the most memorable cast of characters in the series. I love how a lot of conversations question morals, exchanging opposing and different perspectives that usually make them clash. I applaud this story, and I think it might be my favorite plot in the entire series. If we add the amazing combat, it's completely worth playing both ways, story and gameplay. Number 2. The Sora Saga Trilogy. The Xeno series is nowadays very known for being strongly story-driven. Xenogears is one good example on how way more effort went into the plot than in anything else, but no game in that series comes even close to the Sora Saga trilogy, despite having what I think is the best story in this entire video. Back then it even had memes about it, that playing the Sora Saga games was pretty much like watching a movie. There's tons of reading here, that's for sure, but most of the plot unravels in fully animated and voiced cutscenes. Before you think this is a chore, think twice, as this is a phenomenal cinematic experience. The damn world and lore Takahashi and his wife Sora Saga created here, man. After the masterpiece plot that Xenogears had, it was hard to believe they wouldn't be able to pull it off again. Well, they did, with an intricate world, deep and mature development, with complex science fiction and dark twists, not to say it has an extremely memorable and well-written cast of characters. Each episode is rich in storytelling, so if you can only play the first one because of how expensive 2 and 3, especially 3, are, it's still worth it. Emulation is another way to go, of course. And obviously number 1 is the Trail series, all of them. It was dumb to choose just one game or one arc in this series that's still going on today. It is a fearsome saga for many, as they are aware it is required to play the Trails in the Sky arc to properly understand the rest. They're all deeply connected after all, and come together for the final games in the Cold Steel arc. Those of you who are patiently waiting for Trails from Zero this year, I'm giving you a fair warning. It has spoilers from Trails in the Sky, and a part of its plot focuses on Estelle, Joshua, and Ren, characters from it. This first trilogy is available on Steam, usually very cheap. The first 2 episodes are on PSP as well, so going digital is a good idea, or once again, emulation! The entire saga has incredible world building, characters galore, the majority of them with strong and memorable development. Even a lot of random NPCs get their spotlight in these games. The Trail series has got you covered in every angle. Dark twists, tragic moments, emotional scenes, slice of life dialogue, intriguing plots, political drama, and boiling action. You can't go wrong with any game, each arc offering supreme storytelling. Characters going through their daily lives and goals in life that are sadly connected to a gruesome upcoming war. Check this series out if you can. Don't be afraid of it because of how long it is. Every minute you spend here is completely worth your time. Did you notice that a lot of JRPGs in this video are modern? Yeah, what a coincidence, huh? Just saying, just saying. Anyway, those are my games. What are yours? Let us know in the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and share this video with your friends. See you next time!